Today is the last day in our Grand Conversation series. We've been talking about conversations to have with our pre-adult grands or young adult grands as they're either graduating from high school or college and entering into some exciting times in their young lives. And today is an interesting topic. It's one you might not ordinarily come up with for that particular time of life, but I think it's a good one to have. I don't know how I would have responded myself when I was young if somebody had talked to me about these things, but I think it's a good seed to plant, this conversation. And it is about understanding humility and gratitude as we age. Most of us know that young people, ourselves included, tend to be fairly self-centered and selfish during our youth. That's just the nature of human beings. There's no judgment in that comment. It's just kind of a fact of life. If you don't believe me, go hang out with a 3 and 4-year-old and see what they're doing. They are very self-focused and determined to get what they want, when they want it, how they want it, and pitch a fit if they don't. And that carries on for a while, and we slowly teach them out of that behavior, teach them how to care about others, share with others, and long-term be compassionate toward others. So this conversation has some good potential to plant seeds in young hearts and minds that as they grow up, if they don't have certain traits developed already, I think they'll start developing as they live through life's challenges. Why is this conversation important? Well, humility and gratitude are character traits, and developing character is always an important part of growing up. It will affect that young person's personal life, their professional life, how they interact with others in all situations, and their success in some of those situations. You know, when we're humble in front of others, when we can express gratitude freely and sincerely, our relationships tend to be much better. And so as we age and that develops, relationships have the potential to get better and better over time. Professionally, we're able to work in teams. We're able to do team building, to lead others. These traits go hand in hand with respect. And whether it's in the workplace or in our personal relationships, respect is truly important. We all deserve it, and we all should be giving it to others in our lives. I try not to use the word should very often in my videos, but this is one time I think it's appropriate. We should be kind, compassionate, respectful toward others. So how do we start this conversation? Because it is kind of a mature concept, and young people might not connect with it immediately. So I would suggest that first of all, we define those character traits and discuss how they affect our personal and work life. What is humility? Well, by definition, humility is a modest opinion of oneself. How do you talk about that with a young person and just explain that that's a good trait to have? If they have an example, or if you have an example of someone who's overly arrogant, and what a turnoff that is, that's a great way to teach the definition of humility. Be the opposite of that. Be the person who can let others shine once in a while too. Know your worth, know your abilities, but have a modest opinion about it. Let others lift you up instead of lifting yourself up. What is gratitude? Oh my goodness. Can we be thankful for what we have once in a while? Culturally, that's a tough one right now. A lot of people are not thankful for what they have. And they want more. There's Another word we hear regularly is entitlement these days. And I'm not sure how you counter it except by teaching gratitude. You know, it takes work to produce things, to produce success, whether it's working on ourselves or working at a job to produce wealth to buy what we need. Gratitude is being thankful and willing to show appreciation for kindness, for offering kindness to others, for material possessions. You know, can we make a list of what we're grateful for? Just pause and think about that and ask your grand if they have things that they can consciously identify that they're thankful for. Do it yourself as part of an example in this process of this conversation. You know, are you grateful for your grand? Put them at the top of the list. I'm so grateful for my grandchildren. I love watching them. They bring me joy. They bring me a sense of continuity into the future. They bring me that peace of heart, knowing that there's a little piece of you in that person. You know, there's just so much to say about being grateful for them, and then expand it to the other things in your life. Set that example, talk about it with them, define the terms, and give them examples. And then talk about how these things play out in real life. One of the first things that came to my mind was that people who have humility and are grateful tend to be more teachable. And that becomes really important in the workplace in particular. If you've ever supervised people or managed an office or a workplace, whatever type of work it is, some people are teachable and some are not. And it becomes clear pretty quickly, and it determines their success or failure in a company. Talk to your grands about that. You know, help them to be teachable, to be hungry for knowledge, to be willing to learn. Make that a lifelong goal that they would have. And it starts in part with humility and gratitude. Being humble enough to say, I don't know everything. Teach me, help me learn. You know, what a great character trait. I happen to supervise people with some regularity, and I love it when somebody's willing to work with me at that level. I don't have an expectation when we hire someone that they know everything we need them to know to do their job right off the bat. I expect that there's a learning curve. Are they teachable to get through that learning curve? If they are, that is fabulous. That makes me happy, makes them happy, makes them a valuable employee that I can reward and enjoy for years to come, hopefully. Can they be compassionate? You know, adults who are compassionate are much more enjoyable to be around. Those who don't care about what other people think, feel, or do tend to be kind of crass and unhappy to be around and difficult to have relationships with. But when they're compassionate and they can care about other people and express that and view life in the most realistic way, you know, to be empathetic, to understand that we all have good and bad days, to understand that that person you're talking to in the grocery line may need a bit of encouragement that day, or they may be joyful and they're encouraging you. Compassion is born of humility and gratitude. And these are things that we just don't often pause and think about. So try and plant some of these seeds. Another one that needs to be, another thing that needs to be discussed when we're talking about humility and gratitude is that you can still be a confident and capable person. You know, humility doesn't mean that you have such a modest opinion of yourself that you think you're not worth anything and you have no skills and you're not good enough to do that. That is not at all what humility is about. You can be extremely capable and be a humble person that doesn't push themselves off on others as being better than or more important than anybody else. So keep that in the conversation too. That confidence and capabilities are still present without being arrogant. Teach your young ones that with these character traits in place, you become over time more and more appreciative of the seemingly insignificant things in life. A lot of times we don't think about, the flowers on the way to work as we're walking down the street or the beauty of the architecture. It may come and go and in passing, and someday if we don't have other things on our minds, we may notice those things. But I think the older we get, the more life crises we've been through, the more things we've overcome, we come to see the beauty in those small things. They seem insignificant, but they're not. They are sometimes the things that we draw strength from in difficult times. One of the most exciting things about being a grandparent was just the joy of seeing the birth of a new generation and starting to see the world through the eyes of young people again, to see their enthusiasm, their energy. It may wear us out in the moment, but it still is such a joy to see. So as you're talking to your grands about, learning to appreciate some of those seemingly insignificant things and moments in life, I want to share a little story from my personal life right now. And I'm sure you have your own, and they're powerful teaching tools, okay? We've had some stress. We've got children moving out of state right now, which is heartbreaking for me. So I have to confess I'm a little sadder than normal and struggling with this, and I'm happy for them, but I just will miss having them around. I love them. They are an important part of our lives, and so there's been a certain amount of stress and heartbreak, and even start getting teary-eyed just talking about it. But last night when my husband and I arrived at home and we're walking through the house, we live in a mountainous area and looked out one window, and there's a mama deer and two little spotted fawns just out in our front lawn eating. And a lot of times if they notice you watching them, of course they take off. But she didn't, she just stayed, and she was watching us through the window while she was chewing and eating. But her little fawns were walking around, and beautiful little young fawns with their spots and their ears twitching and their tails going. It was just a moment of peace. It was a moment of beauty. It was just a pleasure to have that little respite in the midst of the world, to say, even though things can be a little trying and difficult, we can still pause and look at something beautiful in nature, enjoy it, take that deep breath and decompress a little bit. And that strengthens us to carry on once in a while. It's kind of like the hug of a grandchild. That will do the same, have the same effect. Their smile, their giggle, their laugh, their funny story. All of those little moments add up over the course of a lifetime, and they become the things we turn back to and draw strength from during times of crisis. So try and have this conversation with your young grands. They may or may not appreciate it quite yet, but over time it will develop if you lay the groundwork for them with a grand conversation. Take care, my friends.